On April 23rd, Damian Lillard made one of the greatest game winners in NBA history with one of the most savage celebrations we've ever seen. A wave goodbye to not only a team season, but potentially a team's franchise. A series that Oklahoma City desperately needed after losing Kevin Durant 2 years ago. This was an organization that had drafted a big three, had made a finals run, and lost it all in a matter of 7 years. After leaving Seattle in 2008, the franchise saw early success with their young big three, but only one of those guys were on the court, and there was a newcomer guarding Damian Lillard, Paul George. Lillard was an established big shot maker, a guy who had sent teams home in the playoffs before. But tonight was different. Not only did he have a chance to send the Oklahoma City Thunder home, he also had a chance to send a guy he's been battling most of his career in Russell Westbrook and a franchise into an epic rebuild, as if this shot goes in, we would see Paul George and Russell Westbrook leave in the offseason. If you guys like this video, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe to me for more videos like this. I have a lot more coming. And if you missed my last video about 2016, the greatest dunk contest of all time, make sure you click up here or click the link in the bio and go watch it. Down 3-1, the Oklahoma City Thunder found themselves in a dire situation. With a ball and a guy known for his clutch shots and taking over fourth quarter, it did not look like they had a good chance of winning this game. But luckily, they had their best defender on them that night. Paul George, an all-defensive first-team player that year, as many would say, one of the best wing defenders in the NBA at the time. Paul George, who was only on the second year of his contract after signing an extension in the offseason for 4 years, $137 million, wasn't even supposed to be on this team in the first place. After spending his first part of his career in Indiana, Paul George just said, "I wanted to go. I didn't feel like being here anymore," and requested a trade out of Indiana. He had made it clear that he wanted to go home to LA and play for the Los Angeles Lakers. So that's what many thought. They said after the season, Paul George will be a Los Angeles Laker. Well, the Pacers, not wanting to lose their 26-year-old All-Star for nothing, started shipping him around. There was a deal done. The Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James looked like the team that Paul George was going to land on. Now, this team had recently lost Kyrie Irving, and they needed another star to build around LeBron James. And it looked like it was a done deal, and that Kevin Love was going to be on the Pacers and Paul George would be a Cleveland Cavalier, and he maybe even rumors of being joined with Carmelo Anthony. But the Indiana Pacers would back out the deal in the last minute, but instead they would trade with Oklahoma City Thunder for Domantas Sabonis and Victor Oladipo. And with the team already acquiring Carmelo Anthony, they would form a new big three: Carmelo Anthony, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. Anthony and George, being the newcomers of the team in 2018, were brought here to help the MVP Russell Westbrook, who had been left on an island when James Harden and Kevin Durant had left him. Russell Westbrook was the last remaining guy from the Seattle Supersonics. He was the last pick that the Supersonics had made, and he was basically the Oklahoma City Thunder organization. In 2006, the Seattle Supersonics were sold to Clay Bennett, an Oklahoma City businessman. Former owner and CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, acquired the team in 2001, but after failing to get public funding for Seattle to get a new arena, he looked to move the team off for some profit. When he sold the team, he had belief that Bennett had Seattle's best interest in hand and that he was going to keep the Supersonics in Seattle. When 2008 came around, David Stern became more and more disgruntled with the city of Seattle, as he had seen the NFL team Seattle Seahawks and MLB team Seattle Mariners both get new stadiums, and he was kind of like, hey, this stadium needs to be remodeled, needs to get redone. Seattle, we need to get new stadium or there might be some consequences. And so without getting the A-OK from Seattle, Clay Bennett saw the opportunity to move the team. Now, a place that a lot of people thought they were going to go was Kansas City, who has been rumored for many years now and still is rumored to this day to get an NBA team, but he had his eyes set on one place. When he first got the team, it was clear that he wanted to get a team in his hometown in Oklahoma City. So that's what he did. He moved the Seattle Supersonics in 2008 over to Oklahoma City. Now, when he did this deal, he had to make a deal with Seattle because he was still under lease till 2010 for the Key Arena. So he broke a deal with Seattle for $75 million, which would keep the branding and the name right of the Supersonics in Seattle, which means that the new Oklahoma City team needed a name. Welcome, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not only this, bring a new city, a new team, it brought new faces. Seattle had 1 year with their second overall pick in 2007, Kevin Durant, and they had drafted a player right before becoming the Oklahoma City Thunder in Russell Westbrook. These two had shown instant impact as soon as they came onto the team. But as a whole, the team struggled. The first year, they only won 23 games, with Kevin Durant leading the team in scoring at 25 points with adding in 6 rebounds. He would also be helped out by second-year player Jeff Green, who averaged 16 points, and rookie Russell Westbrook, who averaged 15.3. After failing to make the playoffs, the team was awarded with the 3rd overall pick. They were able to acquire ASU guard James Harden. And at the time, they didn't know it, but they had formed their own version of a big three. With Harden now, they saw instant improvement, with Green, Westbrook, Durant, and Harden not missing a single game that season. The team would finish 50-32 and secure the 8th seed in the West. In this season, we saw Kevin Durant win his first of 4 scoring titles, averaging 30.1 points. Jeff Green and Westbrook stayed around their averages of 15 and 16 respectively, and the rookie James Harden added in 9.9 points off the bench. The first round saw them go up against the number 1 seed Los Angeles Lakers and Kobe Bryant. To a lot of people's surprise, they took this team to 6 games. This team would go on to win the NBA championship, but a lot of people looked at, hey, maybe this is a sign of something to come. And it was. The next season, the team would improve and finish 55-27 and have the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Durant will win his 2nd consecutive scoring title, averaging 27.7 points, and Russell Westbrook would have his breakout year, averaging 21.9 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. Harden would also improve, but he would average over double digits for the first time of his career at 12.2. This young team came into the playoffs hot, beating Carmelo Anthony and the Denver Nuggets in 5 games, then defeating the defensive juggernaut in a contested 7-game series, the Memphis Grizzlies, only to lose in the next round in the Western Conference Finals to the Dallas Mavericks, who would go on to win the NBA championship. But once again, this was a bright side for this team, as they've only had the big three for 2 years, and it looked like it was signs of something coming. 2011-2012 was probably the year that most people became Thunder fans, and was the year that they put the league on notice. Everybody was talking about the Thunder, and this was really the season that people were like, okay, this is a legit team in the West, and they're young, and they're hungry, and they have legit 3 stars. The 2012 team didn't just put the league on notice, but it put everybody that watched basketball on notice also. I remember in middle school at the time, and the Thunder were just a fun team to root for. You know, everyone was tired of seeing the same old, and it was this young, fun team that was easy to root for. Kevin Durant used to always wear those book bags. I remember the time hooping and playing AAU, no one really wore book bags. Everyone would bring their little duffel bag, but after he started wearing the backpack in press conferences, everybody had a bag. I remember KD made his own bag, and everyone had a KD bag. Then everyone had the Nike Elite bag. Like, he started a whole trend for hoopers. I also remember the KDs, the KD5s that came out in 2012, but the year prior, the KD4s came out, and that was like the shoe you had to have. It's personally my favorite basketball shoe of all time. I wanted every single one of them, the Ant Pearls, the N7s, everything. And the Nerf ones, those are actually my personal favorites. They came with the basketball hoop too. I think the thing that was so special about those shoes was he would always talk about how, and basketball shoes were always over $100. You know, you went to go get Kobe's, LeBron's, anyone that was around at that time, Carmelo Anthony shoes, they were always over $100, $110, $120. He wanted to make it affordable because he couldn't afford over $100 shoes, so he made it $95. It wasn't that far off 100, but that was significant. You know, that was the first shoe. Like, oh, this is $95. I'm not paying $100 for it. And my mom would always tell me no $100 shoes, so that was like the shoe I always wanted. Never got to get my hand on it. Still to this day, I'm desperately looking for some KD4s. So if you have any KD4s in size 11, DM me on Instagram because I need them. But those are the shoes, and like I think it just kind of went to essence of like how much of a culture impact that this team had, not just from the play style, but also what they did on and off the court. This team was so young and skilled and athletic that most of these Western Conference teams couldn't keep up. I mean, not to mention that these were older teams in the West. You had Kobe and the Lakers. You had Dallas and Dirk. You had the Spurs with Tim Duncan. And you had the Grizzlies with Mike Conley. A lot of these teams were just old. They were great teams, but this young, powerful, hungry team was just too athletic, too quick, and way too skilled for any of these teams in the West. This season also would be the breakout season for James Harden, as he would average 16.8 points, 3.7 assists, 4.1 rebounds, and win his first Sixth Man of the Year award. This team was poised for something great. And they coasted through the Western Conference playoffs. In the first 2 games, they knocked off the previous teams that had beat them in the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks, only losing 1 game total in the first 2 rounds. And then defeating the Spurs in 6 games to make it to the first NBA Finals. A team that had left Seattle 4 years ago and had been this new big three, has been 3 years young, and every year we had seen improvement. This seemed like it only made sense that they would make this run. After the meltdown of the previous season for the Miami Heat, they were determined to win this finals, and they did. LeBron James and Miami Heat were able to win, giving LeBron James his first ever NBA championship, which, of course, I celebrated very well. But this didn't really mean much for the Thunder, as many expected them to just be back 3 stars, all under 25, with great potential. Of course this team would be back. But unfortunately for them, they never made it back to the finals ever again. After losing the finals, the Thunders found themselves in a crossroads. Either pay their rising star, 6th man of the year, James Harden, the $60 million he was requesting, or trade him away. So unwilling to give him the superstar money he rightfully deserved and wanted, they traded him away for Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb, and some picks to the Houston Rockets. Now with no Harden, the team shifted their focus to Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. KD will go on to win league MVP this year, averaging 28.1 points, 4.9 assists, and 7.9 rebounds. But despite winning the MVP award, the Thunder would lose in the second round to the Memphis Grizzlies. The next 2 seasons would be more of the same. A lot of underperforming playoff performances, a lot of great games from Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook respectively, but really no improvement as far as finals runs. Then came the 2015-2016 season. This was a year full with rumors, as Kevin Durant was on the last year of his deal and many were speculating where he might go. That year we also saw the Oklahoma City Thunder get rid of their coach Scott Brooks, who had been with them this whole run, and bring in a new head coach from the University of Florida, Billy Donovan. Under Billy Donovan, the team would finish 55-27 with the 3rd best record in the West. In the first round, they would meet the Dallas Mavericks and win 4-1, and then move on to the San Antonio Spurs, who they would win in 6 games, 4-2. Lining them up with the defending champions and Kevin Durant's potentially new home, Golden State Warriors. The Thunder would break out to a 3-1 series lead over the Warriors and look like everything was good, as they're finally going to be back in the NBA Finals and have a high potential of keeping Kevin Durant. In the next 3 games, they would collapse and lose all 3 of them, including an iconic Game 6 from Klay Thompson on the road. With the team failing to close out that series, it opened up the door for Kevin Durant to leave, and he did. And he joined the Golden State Warriors, leaving Russell Westbrook all alone. As a team that had reached the NBA Finals with 3 stars, all under 25, was left with 1, Russell Westbrook. With Kevin Durant and James Harden gone, all eyes were on Russell Westbrook. What would he do? And he did something we haven't seen in decades, something historic. He averaged a triple-double for the full season, something we haven't seen since Oscar Robertson, and won his first ever league MVP. Unfortunately, the league MVP didn't lead anywhere, as he would lose in the first round, but he would ink a 5-year deal to stay with the team. This was enough for the team to feel like they had the trust of Russell Westbrook, and they were now looking to bring in players around him. In 2017 offseason, the Thunder knew they needed to do something to keep Russell Westbrook, their MVP, happy. So they added a Hall of Famer, elite scorer Carmelo Anthony, and they traded for Paul George. I said earlier in the video, Paul George wanted out of Indiana, and he was assumed to be on a one-way flight home to Los Angeles. The Thunder, though, they took a chance that a lot of people didn't think they should have took. They traded away Victor Oladipo and Sabonis to form their new big 3 of Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, and Paul George. Now, many people assumed that this was going to be a 1-year rental, that after this year, Paul George would just bounce like Kevin Durant did, and he'd be in Los Angeles and be a Laker. And that 1-year rental didn't seem to work out that well, as they ended up 48-34 and only 2 games away from missing the postseason altogether. And in the first round, they would meet the Utah Jazz, a team that they were expected to beat, an improving young team with the young star and Donovan Mitchell, but they weren't facilitated to beat this big 3 full of Hall of Famers. They did, and Joe Ingles famously embarrassed them in all 6 of the games as they took them out. And after losing in the first round, it seemed like that was it. Paul George is out. He's going to go to the Lakers, where he wanted to go in the first place, and Russ Westbrook would be left alone again, and the experiment of the 1-year rental from the Thunder absolutely failed. Everyone's surprised he resigned. He didn't even take a meeting with another team. He literally, at 12:01, was in Russ Westbrook's house at a house party with Nas performing, posting an Instagram photo titled Unfinished Business. After Paul George resigned, the team had a little bit of breathing room, but still a lot of pressure, as now they have their guys, but we have to make it work. The team would finish 49-33 and end up with the 6th seed in the West, and would go into the first round to play against the number 3 seed Portland Trail Blazers. After going down 3-1, OKC found themselves traveling to Portland to play the Blazers on their home court. Game 5 was a highly contested game with both teams taking leads all game, and it came down to the last minute. The last minute of the game was very intense. CJ McCollum had knocked down this mid-range jump shot to tie the game at 113, and then Paul George came down to get a go-ahead bucket to go up 115-113. Then Damian Lillard comes out and finishes ridiculous switch hands layup to tie the game at 115. And after a missed layup by Russell Westbrook to take the lead, Damian Lillard had the ball in his hands with just seconds to go. Damian Lillard out of Weber State has been the Blazers star since he entered the NBA. He had been taken 6 by the Blazers and instantly had an impact by averaging 19 points, 6.5 assists, 3 rebounds in his rookie year, and took home the 2012 Rookie of the Year. However, the Blazers struggled on his first year. He only won 28 games, which would put them in position to get the 10th overall pick, where they would find him some help in a guard out of a lone college of Lehigh, CJ McCollum. CJ, however, wouldn't have the same impact as Dame did his first year. He would struggle, only playing in 38 games and averaging 5.3 points a game. Despite McCollum's struggles, the Blazers finished 54-28 and with the 5th seed in the West behind Damian Lillard's 20.7 points, 5.6 assists, and 3.5 rebounds. And the Blazers had found themselves in the 2014 playoffs. Prior to this, they had lost 6 straight first-round series and had not advanced in the second round in 14 years. So this first-round series meant a lot to Portland's fans, and they wanted to see their team finally get out the first round. They would meet a highly favored James Harden and Dwight Howard-led Houston Rockets team. However, Portland would go up 3-1 in this series and find themselves in a Game 6 where Houston had a chance to take the series back home for Game 7 where no Portland fan thought they could win at. So Lillard, still under the radar by most mainstream NBA fans, finally had a chance to show who the hell he was, and he did. Damian Lillard delivered his first ever Dame time shot.
It's the series. It's Lillard. He got the shot off. Lillard, good!
This would be Damian Lillard's first ever series winning game winner. The Blazers would lose in the next series 4-1 to the San Antonio Spurs, but Damian Lillard was now a household name. The next year would see the Blazers finish with the 4th seed and yet lose in the first round 4-1 to the Memphis Grizzlies, but Dame would continue with his fourth quarter heroics and Dame time would become even more popular. It wasn't until 2015-2016, however, the Blazers finally saw a glimpse of how good this CJ McCollum-Damian Lillard duo actually could be. As CJ had his breakout year, CJ would average 20.8 points, 4.3 assists, and 3.2 rebounds, and the Blazers finally had a dynamic duo in the backcourt. They would finish that season with the 5th best record in the conference at 44-38, but once again come up short, losing in the second round to the Golden State Warriors, which would, unfortunately for them, become a trend. 2017, however, was a struggle for the Blazers. Both Lillard and McCollum improved, but the team barely finished 500 and made the playoffs, only once again to lose to the Golden State Warriors in the first round. After 2 playoff disappointments, 2018 seemed like it might be something different. They need to prove to the league that they were legit contenders. Lillard and CJ still continue to be a dynamic duo, with Lillard averaging 26.9 points, 6.6 assists, and 4.5 rebounds. And CJ would add in 21.4 points, 3.4 assists, and 4 rebounds. And the team would overachieve to a lot of critics as they would finish 49-33 with the 3rd best record in the West. But after overachieving in the regular season, they would underachieve and really underperform in the first round to almost everybody's surprise. They would meet the New Orleans Pelicans led by Anthony Davis, and they got swept in 4 games. And this kind of seemed like the breaking point for the Blazers, a team that was looked at as, hey, maybe they are legit, maybe they're forming something great here, was kind of looked at as, what's wrong with them? Do they need to blow this up? This is 3 years in a row that they haven't done anything in the playoffs. And Damian Lillard was really under a lot of scrutiny as he had got famously shut down in this series by Jrue Holiday, only averaging 18.5 points, 4.8 assists, and 4.5 rebounds. 2018-2019, all the eyes were on Portland, no longer looked at as a sleeper team in the West. They needed to prove themselves as that this 3 seed that they got the previous year wasn't just a fluke, that this team was legitimately here to win, and that this duo of CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard could work. This year, Dame time, which was introduced back in 2014, was everywhere. We would see him hit crazy fourth quarter performances, and it seemed like every time he touched the ball in the fourth, we knew it was Dame time and it was going to go in. Bittered by getting swept the previous year, the Blazers needed to prove themselves, and they once again got the 3rd seed in the West, finishing 53-29 to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. We are actually a good team, and this year they had to prove it in the playoffs. They were going on to meet the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round, as Damian Lillard would state later on the Joe Budden podcast that this was a good matchup for them. 2 teams, both mad at losing in the first round of previous seasons, both needing to prove that what they have, that their duos could actually work and lead to success, needed the series to kind of save their franchise. Paul George needing to prove that he made the right decision in the offseason to re-sign with Oklahoma City Thunder instead of going to the Lakers, and Damian Lillard needing to prove that he deserved to be in the top 5 point guard conversation. Both sat at half court with the game, the series, their team season, even their franchises on the line. And with 13 seconds left, we saw one of the most iconic game winners in NBA playoff history.
Lillard, long range three, and it's good at the buzzer! Damian Lillard!
And after the shot, Damian Lillard infamously waved goodbye to Oklahoma City Thunder, which was a goodbye to your season, goodbye to your series, goodbye to your duo, goodbye to your franchise. And the Blazers would go to the Western Conference Finals, somewhere they haven't been in decades, and would lose to, once again, the Golden State Warriors. The aftermath of this shot would see the Thunder lose everything, it seemed like. Paul George would shock the basketball world as he would request a trade to the Los Angeles Clippers to join Kawhi Leonard. And stunned by the move and not knowing where to go and what direction to bring the team, the organization decided to trade away their last of their big three and Russell Westbrook to the Houston Rockets. In return, they were able to get Chris Paul and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, forming a pretty nice point guard duo. The year troubled with COVID, they were to make it to the playoffs, and they would face the Houston Rockets, which they would lose to James Harden and Russell Westbrook, ironically. And that offseason, they would trade Chris Paul over to the Phoenix Suns, and officially this organization was in a full rebuild. And that once was in the finals in 2012 with 3 MVPs all under the age of 25. They would only win 22 games the next season, and now they're an organization that is looking for their next superstar. It seems like 2018-2019 was the last glimmer of hope we saw for this franchise, and Damian Lillard shattered it with a 40-foot shot from half court and then kind of just waved goodbye as they traded away George and Westbrook and led to where they are now. You know, this shot was so crazy that I wasn't even watching the NBA playoffs because I was in silent protest because my Lakers had not made it that season. That I was in my room, I think I was studying or something. I was in school at the time. My roommate was yelling, literally screaming at top of his lungs about how I just missed the greatest game winner. And I was like, what is this guy talking about? Like, what? This shot couldn't have been that crazy. I just remember going on Twitter and seeing that he pulled from half court. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like he really shot it from half. And I remember Paul George infamously saying in press conference that it was a bad shot, and like all the NBA media just kind of going back and forth, like it was a good shot, it was a bad shot. Personally for me, I thought, you know, it's the guy who shot 39% from the field from over 30 feet that season. I think it was a good shot for him. You know, he's proven, and I think now we definitely know that it was a good shot. And actually, Paul George actually retracted those comments in the 2020 All-Star game when he saw Damian Lillard win it from half. So it's just kind of funny to take it from all that. And I also think it was kind of cool to see Damian Lillard go on the Joe Budden podcast and talk about why he waved. You know, a lot of people, you know, they wave like this. And Maul on the podcast had asked me, he said, people don't wave like this. Why did you choose to wave like that? And, you know, it kind of like the science and the insight behind it was cool to me. He had said that he waved like this because this is how babies wave. And everyone knows Russell Westbrook had the famous, you know, he would rock the baby. That was his famous thing. So it was kind of like telling the baby goodbye. And yeah, I mean, he basically took the baby from his home and made him go somewhere else and kind of put Russell Westbrook's career in a downward spiral after that, which is crazy too to even think about. But if you guys enjoyed anything in this video, make sure you guys leave me a like and make sure you guys subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. I got a lot more, and comment where you were when you saw the shot and kind of what was your reaction, because I feel like it was one of those shots where it was like, oh my gosh, what in the world did we just see? A 40-foot game winner from half to end the series, and the celebration, everything about it was great. So thank you guys for watching. Peace out.